Hey, good afternoon. I'd like to start by welcoming all of our members of the media here today and our community members. Thank you to all of our emergency management staff, fire department, police department, every other entity that's involved with us here. So today I just want to kick off the meeting by updating our public that we did issue a disaster declaration last Thursday. This gives us the opportunity to work hand in hand with our local partners and some of our partners across the state of Texas. We have a meeting scheduled this Thursday at 12:30. We will be extending that in order to adequately survey the damage, look at each individual resident and business owner that's been affected, and to make sure that we're utilizing all the resources that we have at our availability. We will continue to look at the weather patterns that are coming up throughout this week and to react in a responsive way and to be proactive and making sure that we're ready for what we can do. And we have several other of our staff here today to clue you in and give you more information, ask all your questions and answer all your questions here today for everything that we need to be doing for our community and the things that we can look forward to over the next couple weeks and how we move throughout this issue. At this time, I'd like to hand the meeting over to our city manager, Mr. Jared Miller.
All right, thank you all for being here again, like the mayor said. I want to touch base just real briefly on what we're going to be talking about. We've got subject matter experts from just about every part of the city here to give you an update on what's going on with operations, how we're working to address the challenges we're seeing right now, and also to answer any questions council might have. So the first non-city person that we're going to have is Mike Gittinger. He's the meteorologist in charge with the National Weather Service. I'm going to be handing it off to him in just one moment. We've also got Donnie Hooper, Director of Public Works, who's going to be talking about a lot of things as it relates to sandbags and other things. We've got Max Dunlap, who is our biggest catch-all subject matter expert. He's the Director of Office of He's the Director of the Office of Emergency Management for the City of Amarillo. Y'all can all edit that out, I know. We also have John Collins, Director of Utilities, who's in charge of all of our drainage operations. We have Martin Birkenfeld, Chief of Police, and Brandon Mason, Deputy Chief for the Amarillo Fire Department. As soon as we're done with those presentations and those explanations of what's going on, we're going to have a question and answer opportunity for each one of y'all. We'll take as much time as you need. And then when we're done, we're going to give y'all a tour of the space that you're in right now. So with that said, I'm going to hand it off to Mike Gittinger right now.
Okay, so just I guess start off summarizing a little bit about what we've seen here over the last 30 days to a little over a month. Rainfall amounts, at the airport, really not approaching a record, so to speak. For May, we had 7.36 inches at the airport. But if you look at parts of the city, there have been measurements as high as of 13 or a little over 13 inches of rain in a 30-day period. So that didn't actually occur at the airport. If it were to occur at the airport, that would be pushing near record amounts for a 30-day type rainfall. So obviously that's led to some flooding problems around the city, filling up playa lakes and so on. It's not dissimilar to what we saw happen in 2015, where we had actually in parts of the area even more rainfall than we have so far with this event this year. We had similar kind of results where playa lakes were full, creeks and rivers and that type of thing. So some of the areas have certainly received some appreciable amounts of rainfall that are getting up up in the higher end of what we'll see in a 30-day period. Forecast over the next week, we've moved away from the more organized, widespread type of rain that we were seeing that kind of led to that over that period of time over the last few weeks. But we still have isolated scattered thunderstorms in the forecast daily, really through the end of the week, and potentially staying in a relatively wet pattern into parts of next week as well. Over the next 7 days or so, though, again, any of these storms are very efficient rain producers, and while they're more scattered, if they wherever they occur, they can quickly produce an inch or two of rain, and with saturated soils that we've seen, that can continue to lead to localized flooding issues around the area. But again, the good news is a little more scattered in nature, and so not the widespread 2, 3, 4 inch amounts like what we've seen that kind of got us to this point. But the pattern is certainly is not really changing too much as far as staying in a relatively wet pattern. I believe that they wanted me to talk a little bit about the what we've had with some of the landspout tornadoes that we've had in the area the last few days, and this graphic here kind of illustrates a little bit. So there's kind of a couple different ways to get a tornado to occur. The more traditional way, we have certain conditions in the atmosphere, lots of instability and lots of wind shear, and that produces the classic kind of supercell tornadoes that are mostly what we see. These are the ones that produce the very wide tornadoes that do the most devastating type damage and can be very high end on the EF scale. What we've been seeing the last few days is a process of what we call a landspout tornado. The difference between the two is that in a traditional kind of supercell tornado, the cloud will begin to rotate and then it'll extend a tornado that will come out of the cloud and extend to the ground. With what we call a landspout, these occur where we have kind of these thunderstorm outflow boundaries or some kind of boundary over the area and a thunderstorm forms over it, and they spin up. It's a lot more like a dust devil process where you get some rotation down low in the near the ground that then gets pulled up into a storm, and so those types of tornadoes actually spin up instead of spinning down. So what that means is they're generally weaker. They generally don't do much damage, like we saw. Well, some minor damage, EF0, EF1 type damage maybe. So that's the good news. We don't see them as well on radar because sometimes you literally will have the rotation at the ground before there's even a funnel, and they kind of make their way upward. And so the radar sees rotation in the cloud. And so when we have the traditional tornadoes that we see in the spring, those are the ones that are detected a lot better by radar, and people see them a lot sooner, see the evidence of them getting close to occurring. Whereas these landspouts, they happen very quickly, they're small. And again, the good news is the radar is very good at seeing the tornadoes that do the most damage, and the warning process works the best for the ones that are the most dangerous. But the landspouts can definitely catch people off guard. They can cause damage. If we are able to we also have spotters and get reports, and we can issue warnings that way as well. But they do happen very quickly, and a lot of times by the time you hear about it, it's already happened and it's over. And so that's kind of how, the difference between the two and what we've been seeing. And the way that those are rated is on the EF scale. It's a damage scale, essentially. So we can only rate based on how much damage these things do. That's more of a challenge in the panhandle than other parts of the country because we don't even have trees to hit in places. And so that can be a challenge. But basically, it's a damage scale, so it goes from EF0 to EF5. And the most recent events were EF0s, the weakest on the scale. And it's just, what damage happens to trees, homes, mobile homes, different types of construction. There's been a lot of research for that much damage to occur, what the wind speeds had to have been to do that. So that's kind of how those ratings are done. And I believe that was the last thing that I was asked to speak to.
Donnie Hooper, Director of Public Works. I want to give an overview today of our pumping system. I know there's been a lot of questions about that. Hopefully we can get those answered today. And also just talk about what we're going to be doing over the next 72 hours, where we're going to be at. I want to start out by saying that all of our crews, whether that's in drainage utility, our street department, our traffic department, have been working around the clock since this event started. They really not stopped. In fact, all day yesterday, all day Saturday, we were with those crews most of the days as well, either working remotely by phone or staying in touch with them, and they put in a tremendous amount of work, so I just want to give them credit for that. Our drainage system consists of 5 playa lakes that we pump from. Currently, we're also pumping from a 6 playa lake as well, which we refer to as playa 7. We have some maps that we've distributed out. That's the same map that you see here on the screen. Playa 7 would be the one that's down on the bottom left of the screen there. There's a temporary pump there, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. That's just south of the greenways. The first thing I want to say is dispel some rumors that are out there that we have pumps that are down, that we're not pumping. We have been pumping consistently from every one of our lake sites. There has not been a down period except for when it's raining. We cannot pump when it's raining outside because it overtaxes the system that's already got rain coming into those storm drains. So that's the only time that we're not pumping. We have crews in drainage that are on the clock 24 hours a day. They will show up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, whenever that rain event has subsided. Then they will go turn those pumps back on and start the pumping operations. But this has been a tremendous amount of rain. It's more than we can keep up with. Also, just so you know too, that we check those regularly for fueling, for maintenance. So there may be a little period where they're down for 5 or 10 minutes during a maintenance period as well. So here's what the lakes are that you have on that map. McDonald Lake is at 45th and Coulter. This pumps directly into Meadow Lake. It's force-fed to gravity flow, and you'll see that in the colors that are on this chart there where it's red. That's where we're forcing that pipeline up to green where gravity flows down into that outfall. That flows out to Meta Park Lake, and there it directly disperses into an overflow weir and into the Northwest Creek, into the Canadian River, to the West Creek, into the Canadian River. The pump status there is good. We've been pumping consistently between those rain events as much as we can possibly pump from there. Playa 7, which is south of the Greenways, actually pumps into McDonald Lake, so we've got to be really careful with what we do there. We have a temporary pump that's in place at McDonald, or at that Playa 7. But again, that goes uphill, goes into a drain, goes into McDonald Lake, so we have to watch the levels of McDonald to make sure that we're not creating a problem by pumping more water into that lake there. There are some portions of the period over the last 5 days that we've not been able to pump because McDonald was so full. So, and we've stayed close contact with the owners of businesses that are out there. I've talked to them personally as we go into our pumping status, and off of our pumping status, Alan Harder has done the same thing, and we'll continue to communicate that with them as well. Then we have Lawrence Lake, which is at Western Plaza Drive. It's become one of the big tourist attractions in Amarillo right now. There's a lot of traffic out there. That's just off of I-40, Western Plaza Drive. We have 2 pumps at that location. One of those is a force main that sends water to Meta Park Lake. The other one is forced to Thompson Park Lake. There were both of them gravity feed from there into the east and to the west creeks, respectively. By the way, each of those creeks end up in the Canadian River eventually. Now, a lot of times in our dry seasons, we'll never see that water all the way to the Canadian River, but because of the saturated ground and because of that flow, the high flow that we've had, I think all of it is probably making it to that Canadian River. So that's Lawrence Lake. And we have Bennett Lake near 45th and Georgia. Now this one is the only one that we're currently not pumping now. And if I didn't say at the top, I meant to say that. We're not pumping that simply because it's unfortunate that that pumps into Lawrence Lake. Lawrence Lake is overflowing, as you know, right there on Western Plaza Drive. Some of the streets have water in them. All the way back over to Paramount, Hobbs, the Olson area. So the more water that we would push from Bennett would of course create more problems over there. So we're waiting until we can get the levels down in Lawrence before we can pump anything from Bennett. There was a rumor that came out this morning that that pump hasn't worked in many years, and I can tell you that rumor is false. We were running that pump just as of 2 days ago, and it has not been down. T Anchor Lake is at I-40 and Ross. That lake has 1 pump, and it's that lake is at capacity as well. It's being pumped as often as the rain allows us to do it there, and we've had no issues at T Anchor. The lake that's in best condition right now is Martin Road Lake. We've recently had construction there and expanded that lake footprint. It's in the best shape of all of them. They're all at 100% plus right now, except for Martin Road. It's at about 85%, and we've had no issues over there. That lake is pumping as of this morning. I know crews were going over there at about 11 o'clock this morning to do some maintenance on that pump, but at last check, I knew that pump was running as well. So our primary focus is to continue to do what we've been doing all along, and this is our operations right now are really no different than what they would be in a normal rain event. We can only pump as much as those pumps will allow us to pump. So we haven't changed anything. We're not in an emergency situation other than being on call 24 hours a day. We're pumping the lakes as much as the pumps will allow us to do that. And our final word would be just for people not to attempt to go swim, to raft, to wade, to play in these are not recreational lakes at all. There are so many hazards in these lakes, and it would just say that it's a very dangerous situation to do that. We just encourage citizens to stay away from those areas if they could. What do we see for the future? As you heard our forecast from Mike a moment ago, there's more rain in the forecast, and we're at a stage now to where the smallest rain is going to put us right back to where we're at today. Usually we have capacity to hold rain, so we can take an inch rainfall and we know where we can put it. We can put it in our playas, we can pump them down, we can be ready for the next rain. That's not the case now. So we're just going to be watching the forecast closely and continue to do what we do and work as best as we can with Mother Nature. And sometimes that's just a tough proposition to be in. So anyway, that's where we're at with all that. And again, as I said at the end, if we want to do some one-on-ones, we can do that. But I'll turn it over to Max Dunlap now, Director of Office of Emergency Management.
Good afternoon, Max Dunlap. I'm the Director of Emergency Management here for the Amarillo Area Office of Emergency Management. Wanted to do a quick brief. We have received some questions regarding this past weekend, our siren operations, and then I'll also touch on our current operations with the city and our partners, Randall and Potter County. So first off, I want to address Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. As far as the sirens go, and damage that the areas of the city sustained during a storm. There is internal policies that the Office of Emergency Management follows. At that time, that was not confirmed as a tornado, and therefore it did not meet our threshold of warning for that. for the tornado identified on 27th and Ross. Now, that was not also identified as a tornado until yesterday afternoon after extensive damage assessments were completed. So at that time, it still was not rated a tornado while it happened. The reason some of the sirens were not heard yesterday when they were sounded is because we do not sound them altogether across the board. During Saturday evening's events, we reviewed our procedures and policies immediately and immediately changed them, and after identifying that we needed to change some of them. Therefore, Sunday afternoon, when we did exercise the sirens, or activate the sirens, and exercised our policies and procedures, we absolutely were able to sound the sirens and warn properly after making those changes and adjustments to our procedures. Some of the pictures that were put in on Saturday afternoon, again, we cannot sound in good faith based on a single picture or multiple pictures. We don't know the origin or the timestamp of those pictures sometimes. So because of that, it has to be confirmed. And therefore, we did not sound on Saturday afternoon. Want to talk a little bit about moving forward in this event. This is an ongoing event. As the National Weather Service said, we do expect more rain. Our playa lakes, our drainage is at capacity. And Donnie and his team, I applaud them. They're working extremely diligently to ensure that our citizens are protected and kept safe, and this water is going where it needs to go. However, the Office of Emergency Management has also been working with the Texas Division of Emergency Management. We've requested assistance with sandbagging, and we've made this request for the City of Canyon as well, and it is open to Randall County and whoever truly needs this resource. This resource is the Army Corps of Engineers. They were bringing a sandbagging machine along with a team to fill these sandbags, and they will start to be distributed tomorrow morning. That distribution point will be the north parking lot, just north of 3rd, north of the Civic Center. We will open that tomorrow. Those sandbags will be there, and we will continue to bring them as much as we need as long as this resource is here. The City of Canyon is doing the same. They are, from the sandbagging site, they are ferrying their bags to a pickup point in the City of Canyon. I believe that is at their city library on the north side. That is where they will be picking it up as well. That site will be open tomorrow morning. At this time, I do not have an exact time frame of when that site will be open, but we will aim to open it tomorrow morning. That resource came out of down south around Dallas area, so that resource is hopefully going to arrive around 6 p.m. tonight. Once they start operations, they will start loading sandbags, and we will be able to start gathering them. But the cities will be ferrying their sandbags to their pickup points. We ask that there be no citizens going to the sandbagging point. I also want to point out and thank the Home Depot on Georgia, as well as the Lowe's on Coulter. They have donated pallets to us to help and assist with the efficiency and expedition of moving those sandbags. So we are grateful for their help and helping fellow citizens here in the city of Amarillo. I want to hit on damage assessments. So the city has put out a few social media posts regarding these damage assessments. They're known as the ISTAT. These are imperative for citizens who have had damage, sustained damage to their homes, flooding, anything like that, that we fill those out. The city and the counties need to meet a specific threshold that allows for the possibility for more state help to come here to help our citizens. And we ask that you continue to fill these out. Those damage assessments can be found at damage.tdem.texas.gov. We will also be putting that out via social media again to ensure that our citizens are able to see that. At this point, these damage assessments, that number is extremely high locally. For Potter County, we're looking at $526,000 as a threshold. For Randall County, we're looking around $625,000. I do ask and highly suggest any citizens, counties, cities, anything like that, If you have sustained damage, please fill these forms out. This does help the cities and the counties to meet those thresholds to possibly get more help from the state.
Hi, I'm John Collins. I'm the Director of Utilities. Little explanation up front. Water is measured in millions of gallons per day. That's you'll hear me refer to it as MGD. We have 3 wastewater plants and a whole lot of pipes around town. Excuse me, 3 plants, 1 water, 2 wastewater. The water plant is doing great. Rain recharges the aquifer. That's a good thing for all of us. Our wastewater plants were designed to run at about 12 MGD. Both of them have hit over 24 MGD. Our north plant did fine. Staff's been working all day and night, keeping things going. The southern plant peaked over 30 MGD. So whereas the northern plant peaked at 3 times its normal flow of 8 MGD, the southern plant peaked well beyond that. There was some spillage. Spillage is on the ground. Spillage is around 100,000, which sounds like a big number, but when you're dealing with millions of gallons, that's like you spilt a glass of water on your kitchen table. Out in the city at large, we have pump stations. They're called lift stations. 4 in a row were overloaded again by the rain. And there was a small spillage there of less than 100,000 gallons. All of this is local on the ground. Everybody cleans it up right away. Nothing for anybody to worry about. Staff is continuing to work. We've been doing it for a couple of weeks now without a lot of rest, and we'll continue to do so until the rain event's over.
Hello, my name is Martin Birkenfeld. I'm the Chief of Police for the Amarillo Police Department. So I want to make sure everybody understands, in some of these neighborhoods that are affected, we consider this a public safety emergency. This is not something to be toyed with. This is not a sightseeing expedition. We understand that the businesses and the homes that are affected by this are under extreme distress, and they are vulnerable. And so as the police department is concerned, we're going to pay extra attention to these areas. So we're not going to tolerate trespassing or sightseeing on property that you don't belong on. In addition to that, it is very dangerous, and I think that's been said several times up here as well. So some of the main areas that are affected are obviously along Coulter Street, but we've also got a area on Soncy Street down south that anywhere you see cones, there's likely to be a hazard there. Our biggest problems are around Lawrence Lake, pretty much from Western, around Olson, all the way to I-40 and Paramount. That entire area inside there is vulnerable right now, so we're recommending that people avoid that area unless you have specific business and you know your business is open or the place that you're going is open to go there. Otherwise, do not go there. Don't go there to take pictures. Don't go there just to see what's going on. It's very dangerous. We also recommend that you do not, I say recommend, we demand that you do not drive around barricades. The barricades are there for a reason. There's not enough barricades to identify every hazard. So if there's a barricade in front of a street, that means that street's likely underwater. There could be potholes, there could be fences, there could be any number of hazards beyond there. And if you drive your vehicle there, you're liable to get stuck, you're liable to ruin your vehicle and possibly endanger your safety. So we expect that if barricades are there, you do not drive around those barricades. I'm saying this because officers are reporting to me that even while officers are standing near barricades or have their cars parked there, we've seen people drive around them and then subsequently get stuck in water, ruin their vehicle, and in some cases have had to be rescued from those vehicles. So please, please, this is an emergency in those neighborhoods. Avoid those areas at all costs. I want to make sure everybody understands the water's unsanitary. I think that's been said as well. So we've seen folks trying to ride bicycles or wade through the water. That's just asking for trouble, not only from unseen hazards in the water, but also biological hazards. Just please, please be good to your neighbors. There are lots of businesses and homes being affected by this, and when you drive through the water or when you're trespassing on property, it's causing problems for those businesses. So at all costs, avoid those areas. Let's help our neighbors out and make sure we keep Amarillo safe. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Brandon Mason, Deputy Chief, Amarillo Fire Department. We just want to echo what most of the folks in the room have said today. This has been a very trying time for all involved. We would like to please ask everyone to heed the barriers that are out there. Most of the problems that can be encountered in this could be substantial, as simple as having water across the roadway, There could be manhole covers that are open. There could be different types of electrical things that are in the water. These are not safe conditions to be out messing around in. And again, we continue to ask for your support. Our crews remain ready to serve any needs that may arise within the town, and that's all I've got.